Okay, period 2. So we are gonna start with page 31. Make sure you have Desmos open, that the minor grid lines are off, and then you're gonna do x1, y1. Okay, so once you have your calculator ready, we're just going to continue doing questions about slope. So remember, we want to circle the vocabulary word, which is slope. They gave you an equation, so you're going to type that into the calculator. So 3x plus 5y equals -7. And then we're going to minimize this. So the first thing I want you to do, minimum, is at least eliminate 50% of your answers. So half of them. So in this case, the line is negative, right? That's a negative slope. You can use your right arm to figure that out. So write that down, negative slope. So that means that we can eliminate the positive answers. So it's not G, it's not H. Okay, now we know it's either F or J. And the best way to go about doing this is you really need to practice the arrows. So remember, for me, when it's negative, I like to put the negative on top. And if the number is negative on top, that means we go down. If it's positive on the bottom, we go right. So basically, we have to figure out, does this graph go down 3, right 5, or down 5, right 3? Now, usually we start in the middle of like the y-intercept, but it doesn't cross it perfectly. So we need to find somewhere that it crosses the corner of a square. So I'm going to zoom in to show you. Okay. But I can tell right here, it crosses the corner of a square. Alright, so now I'm going to check, is it down 3, right 5, or down 5, right 3? So the first one is down 3, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's my next point. I don't know why it's not being perfect point. And then the other one we could try would be down 5, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 3, 1, 2, 3, and that one doesn't work. So the answer would be down 3, right 5. You're going to do the same thing for the next question, circle slope. You're going to type in that equation. So we have 4x minus 8y equals 20. In this case, this would be your your left arm in front of your body, which is positive slope. So we're going to write down that this is positive. So that means we can get rid of the answers that are negative. So this one is either up 1, right 2, or up 2. And remember, when there's no number on the bottom, we put 1. Again, it doesn't work to go to this y-intercept because it's starting in the middle. So we want to start here, where it's like on the corner. But if I go up 1 and then I go over 2, it works. If I go up 2, right 1, I don't land on the line. So your answer would be F. Okay, for the next one, there's a little bit more words, so I'm going to read the question. So the next question is, a section of a hiking trail begins at the coordinates -7, 5. So you're going to circle that. That's information that you can type into the calculator. Okay, and then it follows a straight path that ends at the coordinates 3, 9. So remember, when we have 2 points, you're supposed to type in a table. So I'm going to zoom in. So you're going to click this plus sign. You're going to do table, -7, 5. And then the other one is 3, 9. Remember that Desmos has the new button this year. You're going to click add regression. Okay, and now the question's asking us for rate of change. That's another word for slope. So if you ever see it say rate of change, just think of it as slope. Okay, so they're asking us what slope is. Looking at this equation, we have 2 numbers. We have 0.4 or we have 7.8. So remember, slope is the number with x, so it would be 0.4. But remember, on the SOL, they don't use decimals. You have to convert it. So we're going to type in the decimal below here, click the button, and it converts to 2/5. And that would be our answer. Now also remember that when you type in this table, you can look at the points and determine that it's positive slope. So we would have been able to eliminate H and J at least, okay? Yeah, and that's it. So for the next one's more of a vocab problem. You don't even need to use the calculator. If you don't remember, obviously the calculator would help you, but remember slope is always the number with x, so that's slope. The number without x, that's always the y-intercept. Now if you forgot though, you could just type this into Desmos. So I could do g of x equals negative 3x plus 5. Okay, and I would see that slope is negative, right? So it's definitely not h, and it's definitely not j, because those ones, slope was positive. Slope has to be negative. So the difference now would be the y-intercept. If I look at the graph here and touch it, it's positive 5. So that would be this one. It would be g. Alright, go to the next page. Okay, number 10. What is most likely the slope of the line graphed on the coordinate plane? Keyword is slope. You should know this one because this is where we use our arms. So when our arm is up and down, we know that slope is undefined. Alright, next question. Okay, next question seems like a word problem again. Sometimes it's unnecessary and they're just trying to confuse you. So in this case they are, because the question says what is the slope of the line. So I really don't even have to calculate anything. I just look at that equation right there. So they're just trying to add in all these words that aren't necessary. But remember, slope is the number with x. So you look at it, slope is 5 then. And that's it. Okay. Next one's a little bit more complicated. So go to the calculator and we are going to type in that point that they gave us. So I'm going to type in 1, 2. And then I'm going to type in all the options. Okay, and remember when you type in all the options, you're going to turn off all the colors. That way there's not too many things on the graph. Okay, so first we're going to go through and check which lines even touch that point, okay? So the first one doesn't, so I can eliminate it. Okay, let's read the next one. Okay, that one touches, good. About the third option, that one also touches, good. And then the last option does not touch that point, so we can eliminate it. Now, this is a matter of remembering. It says which one has a slope of 4. So first off, I notice that this number is positive, right? That's a positive 4, so slope is positive. So if we look at the two options we had that actually touch the point, this one's a negative slope, this one's a positive, so it's obviously got to be this. The other thing you can think of is slope is the number with x. So if slope is 4, that's the number that's with x. So again, it depends on what you're going to remember the day of the test. So there's multiple ways you can kind of do this. Okay. Next one. Zoom in. Okay, we're starting the next topic, which is domain and range. So if you look here at the top of the page, sadly there's no trick. You have to know vocabulary. So remember, I always said that domain is x, range is y. And then for domain, the song is left, right, and range is bottom, top. Okay. Now, the part that's under it, I do think this is important to remember. Negative infinity to infinity is the same as saying all real numbers. And that's usually about domain, okay? The other one that says greater than is up is like this. And then less than, below, down is like this. So depending on which way your arrows are facing. So for example, in this next problem, it says what is the range? And remember, if the arrows are facing up, then I know the word that I need to use is greater than. So already I would know that the answer is H, but I want us to go over it. Okay, so option F is wrong, because it says less than, which means the graph would be facing down. Okay. If you notice, the bottom of this graph is negative 4, so I definitely know that I need a graph or an answer that has negative 4 in it. So we would only know the F or H. Okay. So just remember, whenever it's asking about range, we look at which way the arrows are facing. Okay. Now, what about in this case where it's asking us about range, but there is no arrows? We're looking at the points. Remember, range means multiple things, right? Range is bottom to top, or range is the y values. So remember, domain is x, range is y, so copy that down. So that means that we're literally only going to look at the y-axis and use those numbers. Do not look at the x-axis. So for example, the point at the top, the y is 4. Let me zoom in. So this point, the y is 4. This point, the y is 2. So first I have 4, then I have 2. Okay, this point a little bit more tricky. I have 0. And then this point is on -4. So if we look at our options, that means our range is F, okay? So you have to memorize the multiple meanings of the vocab word. So range is Y. Okay, for the next one, there is 2 vocab words. They say domain and they say range. But with domain, they said all real numbers. So I already know that the graph is going to be like this, or the graph is going to be like this. Okay, so what they're asking us for is the range. It says the range is all real numbers greater than. Okay, remember, greater than means it's facing upwards. So I know it's like this. But now they want us to identify or equal to what's the number at the bottom. The number, what number? So what you can do is just type this equation into the calculator. Okay. So f of x equals parentheses x minus 2 squared plus 3. Okay. So the bottom of this graph, again, range is y. We're only looking at the numbers on y. This graph is greater than 3. Okay. Next one. Let's make it bigger. Okay, number 4. The important vocabulary word is domain, so circle it. Remember, if we're talking about a graph, we would say left to right. If we're, using numbers or letters, in this case, we're going to say domain is x. So remember that this is called mapping. This type of representation, okay? X is always first, Y is always second. So in this case, the first one is domain, and the second one is range. So, literally, domain is A, B, C, D, and that's it. Okay, next one, the question is asking what are the range values, so that means we don't have Y. But they gave us the domain values, which are X. So actually, a student showed me how to do a new trick in Desmos for this, so I'm going to show you. So of course you're going to type your equation. So let's do that first. Go here. So f of x equals -3x, shift 6 to get the little 2, the exponent, right? Plus 5. Okay. After you type this in, you're going to click this little wheel at the top, and then you're going to click table. Go from the bottom, and I want you to erase all the numbers that are there so that the table is clear. You're going to type in the x values that it gave you. So it gave me -2, click enter, 0, enter, and 1. What it's basically doing is it's taking those x values, it's putting it inside this function, and then it's figuring out what the answer is for you, okay? So my answer is -7, 5, and 2. And if you look at answer B, it gives you the same answer. Now, this is a question you could do by hand. You could look at the graph for help if you didn't remember how to do this. The graph is lower than 5, any number lower than 5. So if there's a number bigger than 5, it would not work. So for example, 8, 17, 14, 41. I'm not using those y values, so it's impossible for that to be the answer. So you would at least know it's A or B if you did not know how to do this and you only had that part. Okay. All right. We're going to go on to the next one. The next one was just purpose of practicing vocab. So this is not multiple choice. I was just making sure you knew how to do it. So remember, domain is X and range is Y. So this is 3 points. And remember, a point is X, Y, X, Y, X, Y. So if domain is X, then I'm doing 4, 6, and 9. 4, 6, 9. Range, I would be doing -3, 5, 8. You are supposed to write them small to big. Now, if you put 5, 8, -3, it would be fine. Okay, we're going to go to the next topic, which is exponents. Okay, and we're going to be using sliders for this, all right? Now, there's multiple ways you can do this, so I like to do it by hand. Other people like to do sliders. So I'm going to show you by hand first, and then I'll show you sliders, and you decide what you like better. So by hand, it says A12, which means there's 12 A's on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then there's 2 B's. 1, 2. Now I'm going to draw that line. On the bottom, I have 3 A's. 1, 2, 3. And then I have 6 B's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, when you have a letter on top and bottom, they cancel. Okay, so now I want to figure out how many A's I have on top and how many B's I have on the bottom. So on the bottom, I have 4 B's. And on the top, I have 9 A's. So there's my answer. Okay, and that was without a calculator. Now, let's say that it's the state test and you don't remember how to do this by hand. There is a way you can do it in the calculator. It does take more time because you need to type everything in. So, first you're going to always type the original problem. So we click division first, then A12, B2, A3, A3, B6. Okay, once you type this in, you need to click all. These are called sliders. So the rule is you can use sliders as long as you cannot use the number 1 and you cannot use the number 0. And I'll explain why later. But for right now, I'm just going to use 2. So whenever you use sliders, I tell students use the number 2. Okay, and now we're just going to start typing all the options. So option F is A to the 4th, B to the 3rd, B to the 4th, A to the 9th, A to the 9th, B to the 4th, and I am making this video in Puerto Rico. So those are birds outside. B to the 4th. Okay, so I typed in all the options. So really quick, your question gives you the answer 32, so that's what we're looking for. Which of the options gives us 32? So if I scroll down, option F doesn't work, G doesn't work, H doesn't work, but the last one, option J, does work. Okay, so that's correct because that's what we got by hand. Now, I do want to show you what happens if you use the number 1, right? Like I told you, you can't use the number 1. Well, what happens if you do? Here's the problem. If I use the number 1, all my answers are 1, and so that doesn't help me. Same thing for 0. If I put 0, I have 3 of them that say undefined. It just doesn't work, okay? So always just use the number 2, and then you're good. All right? So for the next problem, again, you can do it by hand, or you can do it in the calculator. It's really up to you. I prefer to do this one by hand, but I know most students prefer to do this on the calculator. Okay, so again, if you want to do the calculator, just type everything, and when you do the sliders, you just can't do 1 or 0. For me, if I'm doing this one by hand, let me make it bigger. Okay, if I'm doing it by hand, I know that there's 8 C's on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 D's on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I forgot one. Yep, okay. And then on the bottom I have 3 C's, 1, 2, 3, and then 6 D's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to cancel. So I have nothing left over in the bottom. On top, I have 5 C's and 3 D's. Now, that helps me eliminate 2 of my answers, again, which is the goal. Now I need to look at these numbers, 18 over 9. So that line, 18 over 9, that line means division. So 18 divided by 9 is 2, and that's why my answer would be J. Okay? Alright, for the next question, this one you're just going to type in Desmos. You don't have to use sliders or anything. You just compare which graph is the same. Alright? And we can check that next class. Alright, and for our last section, I'm going to be doing this in the video. I'm going to be talking about functions. Oh my god, I'm getting mosquito bites. Okay, so for this one, sadly there's no trick again. You have to know vocabulary. So remember, the way to memorize it is, if you repeat a class in school, that's not good. That means you're not functioning. So that's how we remember it. Repeating is bad. Okay, so here, if you're functioning, that's good. You do not repeat. Or it's one intersection if we're talking about a graph. So the intersection things, that's if we're talking about graphs. If we're talking about numbers, we talk about if it repeats or not. So not a function, x repeats. So for this first problem, we do x, y, x, y, x, y, x, y. Now remember, for functions, we only look at x. We do not care about y. So in this case, x is 4, 5, 4, 8. Notice how 4 repeats. This means it is not a function because x repeats. Now you want to write out the answer because I told you to, but also later when you look at this, you remember, okay, why is that the answer? And then you can put a 4 in parentheses to remember, okay, 4 is the number that's repeating. That's why it doesn't work. Now my next one, I look at the x's. X is 4, 5, 6, 8. So it is a function because x does not repeat. Right, good job. Okay, now we're going to finally talk about graphs. So again, when we're talking about these intersections, that's what we're talking about as graphs. So now we're going to have to look at the number of intersections. So if it's good, if it's a function, it only has one intersection. If it's not a function, it has more than one. So when we're checking if a graph is a function, you want to draw a vertical line. You can literally draw that vertical line anywhere. So I could draw my vertical line here. I could check here. It doesn't matter. You can draw multiple if you like, but it has to be a vertical line. I'm going to check how many times my red line touches the graph. So it touches one time here. Remember, one time is good. It touches one time here. Okay, that's good. So this one, it is a function because 1 is good. Now, if I go to G, for example, if I was to draw my line here, I could say it only touches one time. Sometimes you do need to check multiple locations to make sure, because watch, if I draw it here, it hits 2 times. Okay, and remember, if it's more than 1, it's not a function. So because there's a 2, say not a function. It's only allowed to hit 1 time. Okay. H circle, same thing, 2 times. So not a function. And then the last one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times, definitely not a function. Okay. So my answer in this case would be the first one, which would be F. Alright. Okay. Same thing for the next one. Which one's not a function? Okay, for example, if I start with G and I draw a line, there's only 1 point on each line, so that one's good. It's a function. Okay, remember we only check X if we're talking about numbers. -3, 5, -3, 5. We have repeating, so this one's not a function. We have repeating here as well, So this one's not a function. And if I draw this vertical line on that line, there's so many intersections. So that means it's bad, so that one's not a function. So the answer would be G is a function. Alright, the last problem that I'd like to go over is, this is a real question that's on TestNav, which is kind of like the practice test for the SOL. So this one's not multiple choice. They want you to click to remove a point. Here I put circle because obviously you're doing it on paper, but on the computer they would want you to click a point to remove it. Now this is the type of question that kids don't know how to answer because they don't read the question, and at the end of the SOL they raise their hand, Miss Weber, it says I didn't finish this question, but I don't see the multiple choice, and I can't tell you how to do the problem. So just make sure if you see this type of problem, you know what to do. Okay. So we want this graph to be a function. So remember, when you draw a vertical line, it should only be hitting one point, okay? So notice when I get to this one, it hits 2 points, so that's the problem. So I need to get rid of this point, and then it would be a function. Or, if I got rid of this point, it would be a function. So you actually have two options for your answers, okay? But they're asking you to remove a point to make this scatter plot a function. And that is it for this video, because it's long, I know. I want you to do page 38 and to kind of look at 40. I will be uploading more videos this weekend so you guys can continue notes, because we do want this packet to be finished before I see you next week. Okay, but first I do want you to finish page 38, maybe attempt to do page 39 and 40 if you remember it. This topic, 15 transformations, that's a topic we did in August and September. That's back to Unit 1. You could use your Unit 1 notes to try and do this section. Alright, and happy Friday, everyone.